All right, hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. I am Thomas, and we do educational material on this channel. And today we are, I believe, on the 117th day of studying the reciprocal system of theory, which is a theory of everything derived by Dewey B. Larson back in the 20th century. He died back in 1990. We're looking at his final book that came out after he died in 1995 called Beyond Space and Time. And this was his attempt to get into metaphysics, philosophy, religion, and psychology, as opposed to his earlier books, which were hard science-based, chemistry and physics and astronomy. He's got a couple books on economics as well. And this is a theory of everything. So basically, you kind of understand the basic gist of it, and then you can kind of learn the language, and then you can actually use the reciprocal system yourself to apply it to whatever problems you have in your life, whatever problems that you want to solve, and so on. So we are at the very end here looking at his final book, Beyond Space and Time. We are in chapter 28, which is the final chapter called Human Destiny. And he's going into kind of what happens when you die, speculating or scientifically speculating on what happens when you die. Now, the basic idea behind the reciprocal system is that we have, in Larson's world, universe, it is a universe of motion. And he would also use the word change or even space-time instead of motion. But the basic idea is that for Larson, the universe is not made out of matter, it's not made out of energy, but it is made out of motion. Motion is the relationship between space and time. And matter and energy are really just simply different kinds of motion, as is really all type of scientific phenomena are kinds of motion, relationships between space and time. Space and time don't really exist. They only exist together in motion. They don't exist separately from one another. And they are reciprocals of each other in the same way that 3/2 and 4 and 2/3 are reciprocals of each other, and hence the name, the reciprocal system of theory. Now, since they are reciprocals, they basically have the same qualities. Space we know to be multidimensional, 3 or more dimensions. Time, therefore, is also 3 or more dimensions. Time we know to be flowing and progressing. Therefore, space is also flowing and progressing, which was observed by the Hubble telescope in the recession of the distant galaxies. Larson refers to that as clock time and clock space. It's the scalar progression of space or time. And then coordinate time and coordinate space are the 3 or more dimensions of space or time. Also, space and time only come in discrete units. There's no continuity there. They come in chunks, one at a time. And 1 unit of space in 1 unit of time is the speed of light. And so the speed of light is really just 1. And so it's really pointing at being the origin, or being the midpoint, the null point, the neutral point of the universe. And there is an entire half of the universe that is actually moving faster than the speed of light, which Larson calls the cosmic sector, or sector 2. And then the half of the universe that's moving slower than the speed of light that we recognize is called sector 1, or the material sector. Now, so this is a big difference from Einstein, who believed that the speed of light was the maximum speed of the universe. For Larson, it is the midpoint, or the null point, or again, the origin of this universe. Now, The material sector that we're familiar with, grows by bonding, aggregation to its most complex level, which is the DNA molecule. At that point, the DNA molecule becomes eligible to be controlled by an entity from sector 2, of the cosmic sector. This linkage between the material and cosmic sector at the right proportions in the right configuration is what Larson calls the life unit. Life is a combination of those two things, sector 1 and sector 2. And life starts out as a single-celled organism, and it grows and develops over time through up until it gets to its most complex level, which Larson says is the intelligent human being or humanoid. And at that point, that intelligent being becomes eligible to be controlled overall by an entity from sector 3. And this is what Larson calls the metaphysical sector, beyond space and time. I would submit that this really has to do with the speed of light region. But Larson, other people would call it the numinous or the religious or God or goddess. And, Larson calls it sector 3, but Larson says that, sector 3 is only good, and sector 3 communicates with intelligent human beings, and what it communicates is always correct. And but our ability to decode those messages is limited, given that we are more or less like a single-celled organism of spirituality. And so we're not quite developed enough yet to really be able to decode these messages. Okay, so that's kind of the basic gist of the theory. Now, we're going to take over here toward the end of the last chapter, where he's talking about human destiny. He was just talking about how he leans toward this reincarnation of beings kind of coming back and coming back and coming back and working on themselves. And he doesn't necessarily restrict it to coming back to Earth per se, but he rejects many aspects of reincarnation from the East, such as coming back as an animal or being punished, coming back and being punished. He rejects all of that, but let's let him go ahead right here. It does not necessarily follow, however, that the future existences of the Sector 3 components of the human personalities are restricted to the universe that contains the Earth. There is no actual evidence of such a restriction, and we must therefore give consideration to the possibility that the Sector 3 entities released from their ties to earthly bodies may have their future existences in some altogether different universes. The range of possibilities that can now be visualized, even without taking into consideration the likelihood that we are seeing only a small part of the total picture, is the most striking fact about the survival situation, as it appears in the light of the new information developed in the present investigation. It is clear that human thinking on subjects such as the reality of metaphysical existence and the nature thereof has thus far been based on very inadequate foundations. There are people, says Carl Jung, who feel no craving for immortality and who shudder at the thought of sitting on a cloud and playing the harp for 10,000 years. End quote. Behind the facetious wording of this comment, there is a reflection on the prevailing concept of existence after physical death as an extension of physical life. The objects symbolized by clouds and harps are physical objects. Years are periods of physical time. None of these entities survives, and the entity that does survive death therefore cannot be either physical or permanent. The concept of eternity that looms so large in the teachings of many religions has no meaning in an existence that transcends space and time. Unfortunately, this knowledge of what the metaphysical existence is not does not give us many clues as to what it is. As has been demonstrated in the preceding pages, the door to an understanding of this existence is certainly not closed, but the opening that we have accomplished is still only a very narrow crack, and we are a long way from being able to speak with certainty about what we see. However, the balance of probabilities as it appears at the moment is definitely in favor of a succession of existences in which the individual metaphysical entities play many different roles, and human life on Earth occupies only one place, probably relatively low in the scale. This brings us back to the question as to why the development and improvement of these metaphysical entities, ethical personalities, in human life and elsewhere should be a desirable end or a desirable intermediate step if it is not an end in itself. This is a question that we cannot answer as matters now stand. We will have to wait for more light from some source, additional scientific investigations similar to the one reported herein, a study and analysis of revelation along the lines suggested earlier, in clear insight on the part of some competent investigator, making his inductive leap from a higher platform of accumulated knowledge than now exists, or something else on that order. It is even possible that existence as a whole does not proceed toward any end, in the sense of a final goal. Indeed, finality may be meaningless where time does not exist. We have found that the physical universe is cyclical. The only one-way process that we observe in operation is the development of ethical personalities, a non-physical process. If we now, just to clarify, where he's talking about ethical personalities, that is strictly a Sector 3 thing having to do with the metaphysical. Ethical, he also uses the term moral in that regard, and the development of the personality is basically having enough contact with Sector 3 that you form kind of a tapestry, some kind of amalgamation of many different encounters with Sector 3. Okay, if we extrapolate the general cyclic characteristics of the physical universe to existence as a whole, as we have previously done with the various observed properties of that universe, a procedure that would seem to be justified by the same basic considerations, it would follow that the entire development process, whether it is accomplished in one step or a series of steps, is merely one phase of a great cycle. Just what would be involved in the inverse phase of the cycle is an open question. Of course, none of the foregoing answers the question, what is the meaning and object of it all? It merely pushes the question a little farther into the background. But even though the ultimate why still eludes us, recognition of our immediate goal, the purpose of our earthly existence, is sufficient to put the various activities of human life into their proper perspective. Science, for instance, which has sought to abrogate to itself the prominence formerly accorded to religion, is now seen to be of permanent value only to the extent that it contributes indirectly to the purposes with which religion is directly concerned. Human happiness, which so many philosophers have regarded as the primary objective of life, now appears as only an incidental and largely irrelevant aspect of the pattern of events. The affairs of the here and now that loom so large in our world picture are actually of little significance in themselves. They are important only by reason of the opportunities that they afford for making progress toward our ultimate objective. If life has been a pleasant experience, we are fortunate, but nothing more. The extent to which we have accomplished the purpose of our existence depends on the nature of the structure that we have built, not on the amount of sunshine during the progress of the work. For the present, the matters that we have discussed in this final chapter must remain to a large degree speculative. But one inspiring fact now stands out in bold relief. We and our first cousins, the intelligent beings elsewhere in the physical universe, are the actors in the portion of the cosmic drama that is played in that universe. All else is but a stage upon which we go through our routines. One of the effects of scientific progress, particularly that of the last few centuries, has been to deflate man's previously exalted opinion of his place in the universe. He who once thought that he stood at the center of all things, with a mandate calling for dominion over all the earth, has been stripped of his glories one by one. That earth, which he had assumed was coextensive with the universe as a whole, was found to be merely one of the lesser members of a group of planets encircling the sun. That sun, it developed, is not the unique object which it appears to be when viewed from man's location. On the contrary, it is just an undistinguished star on the outskirts of a galaxy containing billions of stars, a large proportion of which far outshine the sun. Finally, more recent discoveries have shown that the galaxy itself has no special claim to distinction and is merely one of billions that populate space in every direction as far as our most powerful instruments can reach. On this basis, man is no more than an insignificant speck in the vast expanse of the cosmos, a tiny bit of matter whose actions have an utterly negligible effect on the processes of the universe. All this is now profoundly altered. The facts, as discovered by scientific observation and measurement, still stand, as they must, but their significance is now altogether different. As an aggregate of matter, man is still dwarfed by his physical surroundings. But this investigation has revealed that the physical aspect is a relatively unimportant facet of human existence, and that the scientists' conclusions as to man's insignificance, based as they are on physical size and the performance of physical functions, are wholly invalid. According to our findings, the physical universe accomplishes nothing on its own account. It exists only for the purpose of facilitating the development of the more advanced aspects of intelligent life, to aid man and his relatives on other planets to make progress toward their final goal. Our universe of motion is only one portion, perhaps no more than a very small portion of a larger system. But we human beings are not limited to this small portion of the whole. We are citizens in the greater cosmos, and we will find our ultimate destiny in that wider field. Okay, that's the end of Dewey Larson's Beyond Space and Time. And I think it took us about 95 videos to get there, but that's it. And I just kind of did this so that people could kind of put it on their playlists and just listen to one after another, and to make it a little bit more accessible, but just to shed some light on this reciprocal system of theory and how you can apply it and how broad its scope is. I'm going to come back here very shortly and start doing some more videos on Larson. We're going to look first at an interview that he did in 1984 when he was 85 or 6 years old, and it kind of talks about how he developed the theory, what it means to him, where it's going from here, how the theory has been accepted by other scientists that are out there, kind of like where he stood at that time. And that hopefully will give us a little bit of background, then to go into his magnum opus, which is called The Structure of the Physical Universe, which is a 3-volume work containing works on physics, chemistry, and astronomy. I don't think we're going to go through that the way that we went through this by like reading the whole thing, but we will look at various parts of it, and we will try to try to come up with something. Now, I think that structure of the physical universe is really a great thing because for me, I took all those subjects in high school and college, but they never really sunk in, never really cared about that. But then I started studying Larson because I was inspired by his contrariness. And I came back and eventually got my hands on mainstream textbooks of those subjects, and I already knew this stuff before even reading it, just from reading Larson. So it's good to get his point of view. Now, I'm going to be doing one video this weekend that is actually on the resurrection. It's a decode of the resurrection coming strictly from the Bible. So look forward to that probably tomorrow. All sources are going to be straight from the Bible, so not bringing in anything separate, but it's kind of just a litmus test, going over it and seeing if this decode makes sense or not. Okay, we'll check you later. Have a great day.